Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Easy Does It, a podcast created specifically for the amazing members of the MJ team. Rob and I are back with you again, ready for another great episode. Today, our topic, it feels a little different today. We'll see, is climbing the ladder or not. We're going to offer some perspective today on what it means to climb the ladder and if that's really what you should be focusing on. I'm excited to get to talk about this. Plus, Rob and I both kind of have stories that fit with this. So we'll tell you our stories later, and then we'll talk a little bit about climbing the ladder and if that's really what you should be focusing on doing. Okay, but before.
Would you rather? You always do such the best intros. You need to keep doing that.
Thanks. I will.
I'll let you stay another podcast. Okay. Would you rather have to convince your friends that you are not in a pyramid scheme and they don't believe you, or successfully run one and feel kind of good about it?
I'm going to go with the second one, I think.
Really? You tie right into that colt, aren't you? Tied right in. Okay. Okay.
Successfully run one and kind of feel good about it.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely I'm going with that. So for a couple of reasons. Number one, the first one, convincing other people about that's not a strong suit of mine. As we're going to talk about talents later, that is not a talent of mine.
Convincing people otherwise?
I don't feel like I'm a naturally good communicator in that way.
But you talk good smack. Like you could come over there and be like, I know that you're good at basketball, and I feel like you would come over there and talk such smack about that and be like, you can't even touch this. You don't even know what's about to happen to you. Like when we had the basketball shooting game in there, you annihilated me and everybody else. I was like, what the heck is going on over here?
Yeah.
It's like the opposite of pool. Hey, do you play pool? Are you any good? I'm all right. Yeah. You were over there. Watch this.
Balling. Yeah. No, I'm not. I kind of like my work, my pyramid scheme, to speak for itself. So
okay. What kind of pyramid scheme would you do? I
have no idea.
What would you sell? What would be the thing? What are you excited about?
Books.
That's not a good pyramid scheme. Or maybe it is. That's how Amazon got started. Maybe Amazon is a pyramid scheme. We just don't know it.
It's possible.
We're all buying it right now as we speak.
I think I'm not good at convincing people about things, so I'm just going to run with it. Okay. And I'm going to enjoy the fruits of my labor. I am kind of like an achiever. I like to...
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to go with number 2.
Achiever, submissive, cult.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yep.
I'm seeing a trend here.
Yes, very
I like
much
that.
so.
Okay. Mm-hmm. My wife's good friend, she sold something. I forget what it is. It's some type of... like vitamin powder and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so she would come over to our house and be like, oh, you guys have got to try these vitamins. So she would talk about those. And then my wife and her would go to lunch or dinner, or they'd go hang out somewhere. And then she'd be at McAllister's talking to the cashier about the vitamins. Oh. And then she would
everybody gets the vitamin pitch.
Everybody got the pitch. And so Susie's like, please don't. But she was really good at it. She was very charismatic.
Yeah.
Would talk to anybody. And she was really good at that stuff. And I mean, Susie was like, you should hire at Morris-Jenkins. And I was like, hold on. We don't hire cult members. We don't do any of that. No
except me, apparently.
No, we'll allow you.
Potential.
Yeah, we just found that out recently, so we'll allow it. It's we'll predate that one.
Okay, well, what about you? Which one would you?
I feel like I'd go with number 2. I'd be cool with my success speaking for me, but having to convince people otherwise, I don't think so.
Yeah. I'm just pretty much, maybe this is like a stage in life you get to, but I'm just like, I let them think what they want to about my pyramid scheme.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
You sell your little vitamin packs. You can feel good about it.
That's right.
Convince yourself they're good vitamins. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm kind of to the point now where I'm just like, yeah.
Would it change for you if you knew the things that you were selling were just like placebos? They were nothing?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't think I could get down with that.
So you're going to be convincing people otherwise? Got it.
No. There's got to be some legitimate... never mind. I don't think I should say that.
You don't want to just sell them gel packs?
There's got to be some legitimate pyramid schemes out there.
Okay.
But I don't know if you can put legitimate and schemes in the same...
Maybe you could.
Phrase.
Amazon. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
It worked out. What are we talking about today, Meredith?
Climbing the ladder.
Okay.
I am excited for this episode, if you all can't tell. I think my excitement comes from a place of this for me was, I did not quite understand this concept. I did not understand this concept until I came to Morris-Jenkins.
Yeah, same.
And so for me, the idea of this has been super liberating, I think. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. Just understanding that climbing the ladder doesn't always have to be the option. And I don't know if it would be helpful if I wonder if we should just tell our stories first.
Sure.
And then we can kind of connect the things we're talking about back to our stories, maybe.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Glad you agree.
A long, long time ago.
Once upon a time. So many people already know this. I was an educator prior to coming to Morris-Jenkins. I went to school to be, I had an elementary education major, came out of school, taught 3rd grade, taught 5th grade, for probably about 10 years. And then from there became a literacy facilitator, which is like the person at the school who kind of helps the teachers plan, pushes in and helps students and kind of runs planning meetings, that type of thing. I loved it. From there, I became what's called a dean of students, which is essentially just an assistant principal that doesn't get paid like an assistant principal, if we're calling a spade a spade.
Lucky you.
Yep. And then an assistant principal. And so, of course, had I stayed in education, likely would have eventually become a principal at some point. And I got to the point where when I was an assistant principal, where I was struggling big time. I was struggling at home. I was struggling at work. I did not feel like I could do my best in either scenario. I was failing at home in the capacity of being a wife and a mom, and I was failing at school because I wasn't able to do all the things that I wanted to do. So we'll talk about this as we kind of go through this, but an assistant principal is kind of like the person who like ties up all the loose ends. Like they take care of all the stuff so that the principal can be kind of the educational leader of the building. They can direct, where are we going? What are we teaching? How are we teaching it? That kind of thing. Which is what the principal should be doing. But there's a lot of other stuff happening in the school. Mm-hmm. And so the assistant principal is the person who takes care of all of that. And so that's what I did. And I didn't realize until I got here, this is, I guess, kind of getting into part of what we're talking about today. I didn't realize until I got here that the reason why I was hardcore struggling in that role is because that role forced me to be inside my weaknesses a good portion of the day.
Yeah.
Or of my time.
Right.
And so that's why I started looking elsewhere. And thank the good Lord above, I am sitting here today because it completely changed things for me. And so had I stayed, education is one of those fields where it is just conventional wisdom applies. You do exactly what I did, right? It's like you have to move up, up, up. Teacher, facilitator, dean of students, assistant principal, principal. And then maybe from there you might have like a central office job, or you might do something within the district as a whole. And certainly would have been kind of the track that I was on.
It sounds like all the other teachers are trying to do the same thing for the most part.
I think a good bit of them are, because, I think it's only right, like, for people to want to continue to feel like they're making a bigger impact, to make more money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just like normal. And so I think that a lot of people are trying to kind of vie for these few positions that are allowed. And that's something that I wrote down to talk about today as well. So it's just being here has helped me realize that, like, that's not necessary. Mm-hmm. This like one rung leads to the other. And I don't have to do that. I can find my niche and I can like be really freaking good at what I do. And that doesn't necessarily mean I have to continue to climb up the ladder.
What was the stuff that they were asking you to do that was just not your jam?
So any educators out there, if you've ever heard of books, buses, and butts. It's the 3 B's of an assistant principal. Now, that's kind of like old school thinking, but still pretty relevant today, quite honestly. So books would be textbooks. Ain't nobody using no textbooks no more. Everything is done online. But regardless, the assistant principal is kind of, when you used to have textbooks in school, the assistant principal would be responsible for like making sure that those numbers are correct, that you have those resources to provide students.
Like stock, like, hey, we have enough for everybody.
Okay. Yep. And so while we don't use textbooks anymore, that kind of process logistical thing is still very much present. Mm-hmm. It's just not necessarily textbooks anymore.
Doesn't look the same.
Right. Yep. So quite honestly, I do enjoy a good logistical project. So if we were still doing textbooks, I would actually be really good at that.
So that one wouldn't be too bad for you.
That's right.
Okay.
So books, buses, and butts. So butts.
It doesn't get better when you keep saying it.
I won't say it again. So buses, of course, transportation is a huge part of public education. And so making sure that like buses are there on time, that kids are getting to school and from school. And if a kid gets off on the wrong stop, guess who they're calling? You. There were plenty of times where I was sitting at school because we had gotten a call from a parent, from the police, from someone else because someone got off at the wrong stop. They couldn't find their kid. I mean,
that would be a nightmare.
A nightmare.
Yeah.
And so meanwhile, my own children are still at daycare. Last one's there. I'm late picking them up. That was kind of one of the straws that broke the camel's back for me is I was late picking the girls up after 6:00 a couple of times. And the last time they were sitting there just like looking at me when I walked in, like, where, what is happening? And it was just, that was one of the things I was like, I can't keep doing this. Yeah. So buses. Also, too, all kinds of stuff be happening on the bus.
Oh, I'm sure.
If you got kids that ride the bus, I'm not saying don't let them ride the bus. My kids ride the bus every day to and from school. Oh boy. So every day you're dealing, that leads us nicely into the 3rd B.
Butts.
You said it, not me. Which is discipline. And of course, back a long time ago, that you could deal with punishment differently than you can now, obviously. But so the other thing was discipline. So every day there's discipline to be had in a school of 1,000 kids.
Yeah.
Every day. Lots of different discipline issues to happen within a day. So you have issues going on with students. You have issues going on with teachers. You have issues going on with parents. So as the assistant principal, you're navigating that all day, every day. So I'm bringing students into my office. Now that is something that I really did enjoy, is getting to know my students, helping them to navigate difficult situations.
Right.
I did like that part. Because secretly, I think there's a little bit of counselor inside of me. And so, but it was just, when you have the same conversations with kids over and over again, and you're not seeing anything changing, there's a lot of things that go into that. But it's that part really started to kind of wear me down. Yeah. Because it's like, okay, you're hungry because you didn't eat, I'll bring you snacks. You can't get to practice tonight because mom or dad can't bring you because they're working. Okay, I'll take you. Like, it's like, you got upset and you ripped all the pages out of your book today. Okay, I'll get you another book. Like it. And then now as I say it, it just sounds like I was enabling everybody, which is very, very possible. But that's also.
Those kids can't just continue. You can't continue without a book. You got to figure that out.
Right. And that's also within my nature, right? Like that is also a strength of mine, is to look and find a way to problem solve and move forward. Mm-hmm. You're hungry? Here's food. You need a ride to do an extra. I'll do that for you. And so that, but tapping into that strength of mine also, like I said, wore me down.
Right.
'Cause I can't be that person for 300 kids, because in middle school, you're responsible for a grade level. So like I was a 6th grade administrator or 7th grade administrator, and I can't be responsible. Not that every single kid needed me that way, and also be a mom to my own kids.
Right.
So, then, you have teachers who can't get along with certain students. You have teachers who can't get along with parents, and you have to mediate that relationship. I'm calling parents to say, your child did so-and-so, and they say, no, they did not. And I'm like, I actually heard it myself.
How frustrating would that be?
And that's
I literally watched what happened.
Yeah, that happens a lot. So a lot. It's no surprise to anyone who is listening that knows me that conflict and the management of conflict is not high on my talents list or my strengths list. Going back to the would you rather of having a good comeback, that's not me, and that will never be me. Being able to have a back and forth with people like that when emotions are high is never going to be a strength of mine. I've gotten better at it, but it's not going to be something that I do well. And it certainly isn't going to be something that I want to navigate day after day after day.
Right, yeah.
Which is exactly what was happening. So all the things that I love doing, which is, like teaching and helping and learning and helping teachers plan, and that was all gone when I went into that role. So no wonder I was feeling a little and needing something different.
So you started where you did as a teacher, and you did climb that ladder and kept going up and up and up. And I think even from the books we read, you've reached your level of incompetence where it's like, I've reached this level where this is not in my wheelhouse. I don't necessarily like, you learn the skills, but then it doesn't match your talents, what you're good at. It doesn't fulfill you like you would think it would.
Right.
And so, so you left that, and then you found yourself here, old Chateau, good old Shallon. Man, we haven't shouted her out and put her down in a long time. I'll think of something.
She deserved a bigger shout out for getting me here. That is for sure.
So she reached out to you. And then for those that don't know, I sometimes get people ask me, Rob, what do you do exactly here? And I'm like, I've worked here for 15 years. Come on, man. But that's okay. So that led you to what you're doing now. What are you doing now? But then how does that match your talents?
So now I get to write curriculum for nothing technical, although I am practically an HVAC tech and a plumber. But I get to write curriculum on things that I feel like will help people take the next step in their own lives. So when we do any type of management training or we do any personal development training, I facilitate a lot of that. I get to write that curriculum. I get to teach that curriculum. I get to help support other departments, which is one of the things I loved about being a facilitator. Was I got to help other teachers, and I get to help just support. Like that's the thing that I think I thrive off of the most, is just this role of support. And not that I wasn't in that role, but it was just different.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't have to deal with any conflict now, but it just this role allows me to be in my wheelhouse like as much as possible, and I think now I recognize that's what I was missing before. I had gotten so far away from the actual support and the teaching and the writing of curriculum, and that's the part that I was missing.
Yeah. So in First Break All the Rules, and it just talks about taking people's talents, and that you're not necessarily climbing a ladder to management. But you can take a role, and instead of building ladders, he talks about building platforms for people to be able to elevate them. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to become a supervisor or manager. You don't even have to lead a team to be able to continue to grow in your path. So if it's growing in width or even depth within that particular career, what do you think that would look like for what you're currently doing now?
That's a good question. And it's a question that I feel like I have, because I've really been thinking about what does the future look like in this role. And I think it, for me, looks like impacting more people, whatever that looks like. That's one reason why you and I are sitting here right now, is because that's a common value or a common belief that we have, is that this was another platform to reach as many people as we could. And so I think for me, I don't know exactly what that looks like. I've talked a lot in a couple of meetings recently about being able to like speak at conferences, about just having an impact, making a difference. If somebody comes to an MJU class or they listen to a podcast and they take something away from it and it changes something about their life, that to me is amazing. It's just amazing that just the power of a class or an episode of the podcast can do that for people.
Yeah.
So I don't really know exactly what that looks like for me. What I know is that I have to keep growing myself. I have to keep thinking outside the box. I have to keep thinking about what are the ways that I can have the biggest impact for the people who work here, for the people who their families, when they go home. I want to have an impact just, outside of just the four walls of Morris-Jenkins.
Absolutely.
And then of course, Morris-Jenkins, they reap the benefits of all of that, because when we're all working on ourselves, we're better here at work too.
Right. Yeah, it is a beautiful thing seeing somebody go from where they are to reaching into that potential that they have that maybe they didn't know was there prior, but then also see where that can take them in their career if they truly tap into what their talents are. I love being able to offer somebody a tool or something and then them be able to take it and run with it and be like, Rob, this worked on this call. I was able to help this customer with X, Y, and Z, or, hey, I turned this around. I said this in a different way. And, it makes more sense that way. It's now how I would say it. And it makes me feel more comfortable, which in turn makes the customer feel more comfortable. And so, seeing people continue to grow from where they are and tapping into potential, not even the max potential, because that's limitless if you believe that it is, but just tapping into that potential that people have is a beautiful thing to see.
Yep. Tell it. So you have lots of opportunities in your role now to do exactly that.
Oh yeah.
So tell us, how did you get to the communications trainer role?
Well, long time ago, I worked at Chick-fil-A. That's a true story. Worked there for a while, and it was very, very conventional wisdom. You are start as a window operator, and then
That's fancy.
Yeah, I just made that up. But I was working in the window, and I eventually moved working on the register. I preferred the window better because when you work at the register, you got all kinds of problems that can pop up. I didn't want to deal with all that. I'm like, this table's dirty. Meanwhile, you've got like a line of 90 people. But the next roll up was becoming like a team lead. And then you were like assistant manager, and then you had like operator. And so that was the path. And what was interesting is one of the guys that was the manager, his brother was my youth pastor. And so I got to see Matt all the time, and I got to see Danny all the time, and in separate places. And knowing that Danny had worked at this place for years, long time, like he had worked his way in, and I learned a lot from him. But the path was to become a team lead. I joined the military, and then I started doing construction, some other stuff. And then when I got hired on here, I was a technician, and I started off with that. I worked as a technician for a few years, probably I think it was close to 4 years, something like that. I was a Priority Advantage technician, then moved up to service. And I still enjoy helping people. When I worked at Chick-fil-A, I helped out a lot. Prior to that, when I was in high school, I did JROTC. I was a squad leader there. And then later on, I was the drill team commander. So we used to go we would go to drill meets. And so you'd get in your uniform, shine your shoes, you bring your rifles, and then you'd go and you do your little drill where you're marching.
Yeah, this is like a Major Payne.
Basically.
Tiger.
Yeah. Well, you got some candy in your pocket. I love that guy. I like to hang upside down, put my gun apart, and put it back together for my nose bleeds. I love that. But yeah, so I was the drill team commander later on. And so I just enjoyed helping people. Just something I always appreciated and liked. And so when I was a technician, the next role up from that was becoming a supervisor. But I did enjoy that stuff. And so I remember the day that Jonathan mentioned it to me, offered me the role, I was like, I need to talk to my wife about this. I need to make sure. And I remember the look on his face was kind of shock of like, well, of course, talk to your wife. But then it was funny, that night we had a video shoot at Jonathan's house. I'm like, I hadn't talked to her just yet. But I took the role, and it was great. I learned a lot about myself, how to help people. And then later on, Brandon actually mentioned to me, he asked me what my future here was. And this was back at the old building before we had even started really doing plumbing really heavy. We just installed water heaters. And I saw an opportunity. I'm like, man, we could really grow this thing. We're doing HVAC. We can start rolling with plumbing. And I told him, he tells this story all the time. It's
I think I've just heard this story.
Most memorable moment, but he says, Rob, what do you want to do? And I told him, I said, I want to be the water heater manager. And I can only imagine the amount of restraint that must have taken him to not like horse laugh in my face. But he remembers that story very clearly because I'm sure it was funny from his perspective. But he asked me, he says, as a manager, whatever you're doing, do you feel like that you could just be an HVAC manager or just a plumbing manager? I'm like, well, no. And he says, what's the difference between being a director running a department and being a supervisor managing techs? He said, so think about that. And the conclusion that I came to that we talked about was the fact that there's really no difference. It's just the people that you're managing just have different roles or skill sets. And so if you narrow your vision down to, I just need to be the best, I'm going to become, if you work in HVAC right now currently, it's like, I'm going to take over the director role. So what do I need to do to get there? If you don't have those skills or those talents, you're going to hate it. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was, I do enjoy management. I did enjoy that stuff. But my vision was so narrow to, I just need to follow the path that I'm on. HVAC is my start. That's where I will finish. And so he broadened my horizon. I need you to get really good at being a good manager, follow the characteristics, follow the fundamentals that we have. And so later, a few years later, a management role in the contact center opened up. And he's like, you want it? I said, I'll try it. But boy, if I have to answer the phones to angry customers, I don't like doing that all the time. But he's like, I don't think it would be as bad as you thought. And so I moved up there and did that for a while. And then later on, a role opened up as a director up there. And so I took the director role. Loved it. It was just so different from being a tech and managing that. It was exciting learning a whole new skill set. And that fool was right. The management skills were the same. It's just the management fundamentals are the same. The skills within that are a little bit different, but management's the same. So then I continued to grow myself, educating myself on the fundamentals, growing my own talents. I really love enjoying and helping people grow themselves. I have actually written on my my monitor to inspire others to find their magic. Like that's what my mission purpose is. I wrote it down years ago. Inspiring others to find their magic. And so one day I started teaching service system to help out with technicians. So I was doing the director role and that at the same time. That was tough because I'd go downstairs. I'm like, supervisors, y'all got it. I'm out for 2 days. And I would go downstairs and teach. And then later on a role opened up to where it's like, we need a communications trainer. Do you want it? I'll take it. And so I stepped in that. That was a hard decision. I remember sitting there for a hot minute thinking about that. The training path and the management path are just very different. And so do you see yourself moving in the future, continuing on this path of management or continuing on the path of teaching and training? Very different skill sets. And so I was already doing this. I enjoyed helping and guiding people in the management side. It just looks different. There's a lot of operational things you have to get done. If you like to problem solve, think about the future in that way, the management of people or training, I got to do a lot of the helping and all that stuff. But I just find myself, there was a lot of passion from that. Like that's how I think all the time. Somebody brings me a problem, instead of giving them the answer, I start asking them questions because I want to develop the person versus them coming back and being the crack dealer. And so I don't know if I could say it on here, but that pathway just brought me a lot of passion and enjoyment. And so it's been 5 years doing that. And so I still get to do the management stuff indirectly. But man, I get to wake up every day. Ain't no Sunday scaries over here. I'm excited about coming in, just helping people. So, yeah. So my path went from non-management into management, loved it and enjoyed it. But I found myself in a different area that better fit my talents. And so, here I am.
I remember, I don't know if I was on the team yet or not, but I remember talking with Shallon, and she's like, Rob, this was, you weren't the communications trainer yet.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, Rob's gonna, he's gonna be a trainer. And
I remember these conversations. I'm like, you don't know me, fool.
yeah. And she said she just kept planting the seed. And she would say, "Are you ready? Ready to come on over to training?" You'd be like, No. And then it was like, almost like she could, it may be coming from the education world, you can recognize, probably now that you've been doing this for a while, you can recognize that in other people as well.
Yeah, you see it quick, yeah.
I'm sure that what she recognized was the fact that is well within your talents. And that I just think it's funny now thinking back that she just kept planting the seed and you were like, no.
She was relentless. You ready to come to training? I'm like, I don't know about all that. I'm like, what? First time I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you should come to training. You're already doing it anyway. And I'm like, no, I don't know about that. I just remember every time I walked in her office, she says, hi, what's going on? And then by the time I'm walking out, you ready to come to training? Mm-hmm. That went on for a hot minute. But she saw something that at first I didn't really see. And then as time went on, I'm like, I do enjoy doing that stuff, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also interesting, like, the way that we so I've looked at our disc profiles on the training team before, and like, you have a high political, and a lot of times when people see high political, they think, oh, they want to be the boss. They want the power, they want the ability, but it's like, you can find ways to have that influence and that power that doesn't require you to be the boss.
Yeah.
Because something else that you said that I wrote down, and we've kind of alluded to a little bit, is that, one rung doesn't lead to another. So just because you're a great tech does not mean that you have the same skills that are required of a supervisor or even a trainer. Mm-hmm. I think conventional wisdom, you're probably going to hear us say that a lot on this podcast, this episode is conventional wisdom tells us that if you're good at this, then those skills will transfer to the next rung up. And the fact of the matter is that's just not true.
Right.
There can be overlap. Certainly are there people who are great technicians or teachers, or it doesn't matter, fill in the blank, who have some of the skills that are needed to be, a good manager. Yes. But they are two separate skill sets.
Right.
And so I think that's one of the things, that's where conventional wisdom kind of falls short, is that we're led to believe that one rung builds upon the other. And that's just not the case.
Yeah. Definitely in First Break All the Rules, it talks about your talents and the things that you're good at. And so it says, like, you can focus on your weaknesses and try to grow those things, but you'll find that you'll only get marginally better at them. And then if you focus on your strengths, those things will grow exponentially. Mm-hmm. And so I was thinking, of course, talk about softball. I was thinking about the softball team. We're playing travel, and so you position the players on the field in accordance with their talents, what they're good at. And so we've got some outfielders, but we have one outfielder. Amazing, insane. You put her at center field. One of the parents called her the queen of the outfield. She says, I need you to be the queen of the outfield and own that. If the ball's like hit between you and somebody else, that's your ball. Go get it. Her hand-eye coordination is nuts in the outfield. Pop fly. Coach will hit like a missile that disappears into the clouds, and it'll come back down and she'll catch it. If I put someone else in that position, it's a 50-50, sometimes 30% shot they're going to catch it. Mm-hmm. I've got a girl that plays catcher. Phenomenal form. Great eye contact. It's really cool to watch her behind the plate. It's insane. But if I put her in other positions on the field, her speed or just being able to get to the ball, get it stopped, just looks different. Mm-hmm. And so if you place someone or yourself in a position where you can work on your talents, you can get exponentially better. So my daughter, she's really fast. Now, I can work on other skill sets for her. She's never really played first base. She plays shortstop. She plays second. She can pitch. She can catch. You put her in the outfield, she's pretty good. But if I put her at first base, she's never even practiced that. I doubt that position would be the best for her. So what was the point of putting her over there just to say you play all positions? You are amazing at shortstop. How about we just focus on that and you could be a world-class shortstop? So for all of you out there thinking about the ladder and thinking, where do I belong on this? You can climb the ladder and go up to management and try to hit this level. But if you don't have the skill set or the talents really for that, you can do it. We can do anything, but frustration will set in. Things are a lot harder than they really need to be. You'll find that burnout starts to set in where you're trying 10 times harder than others that actually have the skill set. And so where can I find my talents, or where can I find fits for my talents that actually work for me to where it's something that I don't even have to think about? If you're curious what your talents are, that's a whole other piece is you got to identify that stuff first. And so the StrengthsFinder assessment's a really good source. We can link that in the show notes. That's a really good place to start. But even if people just come up to you and be like, dude, you are so good at that. Like, how are you even doing this right now? A lot of times it's something you don't even recognize. Yep. It's something that you're good at. And so if you don't know what that is, you can just go ask people, what do you feel like I'm good at? People that know you well enough. What are you really good at? Sometimes I find talents are funny that even talents that might seem negative are actual real talents. I worked with an individual a few years back and she was very skeptical of everything all the time. And so I was like, child, you need to trust some people up in here. Like, it's okay. It's going to be cool. And so coaching people wasn't always her strength, which was okay. But in a management role, it's like, we got to do that from time to time. Like, you got to be able to coach people, disciplinary, whatever. I had another person that I worked with that was really good at the coaching piece, but the looking into data was not her jam. And so switching one person from, I'm not going to have you coach all that much, but I really need you to look into data and try to figure out, why is this showing up? Where is this coming from? Question everything. And that skepticism, bet. Yep. Like, let's go. You can imagine someone that's highly skeptical will be really good at being a detective.
Yeah.
And so when it looks like it might be a weakness, it actually could be a very strong talent. And so that actually fit pretty well for that individual. And so, even for our managers out there, you really got to identify, what are my people's talents? That's really important, that you know what their talents are. If you have a question mark, you got work to do. But then recognizing, what position does this person need to be in? How can I have others block for them in that way so that they can spend more time on that talent? And then how can that person block for the other talents of the other people on the team, to where you have a fully functioning team where people get to work on their strengths every single day?
Yeah, I think it's, I wrote down, because maybe, I'm sure we've said this before, but maybe it's worth repeating again when we say the word talents. So when we say the word talents here at Morris-Jenkins, we're not talking about like Michael Jordan talent. A lot of times when we say talents, we think of like people who have this gift from God, this superb thing that has been put into them that other people just aren't lucky enough to have. When we say talents, we mean things that you can productively apply. They are thoughts, feelings, behaviors that you can productively apply repeatedly. You really don't even think about it. It's just like, it's who you are.
Right.
And so I think, like you're saying, paying attention to I think that's hard for people to do. I mean, it's no different than if you just stop somebody on the street and you say, hey, what are your strengths or your talents? I use both of those words interchangeably.
Same. Yeah, same.
So people at first are like, I don't know, can I have like 10 minutes to think about it? People just don't think about that or know that right off the cuff. So I think, number one, figuring that out. Number two, asking other people. If you see that in other people, calling that out. I just think sometimes people aren't thinking that way or don't know that. And then I think the second part is then finding the role that matches. Sometimes that role, I wrote on here, sometimes that role exists in the current space that you're in, and sometimes it doesn't. That's one thing. For one person, it might be, okay, let's look at what comes next for you, what that role looks like. And then for some people, it might be like, we appreciate all that you've done here, but it looks like you're ready for something outside of these four, that is part of that conversation.
Yep.
That was no different than my conversation of what was I going to do? I mean, I could have gone back to being a facilitator. That's another thing that I don't know if I wrote it down, but one thing that they talk about in First Break All the Rules is, I won't generalize, but I would say particularly for men.
Watch it. I'm listening.
So if we're doing like a one rung leads to the next, if we kind of have this mentality and we're climbing the ladder, I think anybody, but maybe men more so, going back down the ladder would be, that would kind of produce some feelings of shame.
Yeah, it hurt.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like for me, if I was at the assistant principal level, really where I was flourishing was the facilitator role. And I have said before, hindsight's 20/20, right? If I had stayed in the facilitator role, I would probably still be in education today. But there's also, because when we believe in climbing the ladder, that also means we can't go back down, even if going back down was the better fit.
Right.
And so I think that that's also, too, a part of like this construct that we have to start thinking differently about is, number one, there doesn't have to be a ladder at all. But going up and then coming back down is nothing that anybody should feel shameful about.
It's pretty uncommon. At least in my experience, I see it more often here. It's more okay at Morris-Jenkins if you've reached a level that just did not work out for you to go back to doing what you were doing prior.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw that, I've heard us talk about that. It's okay if they move into a role and it's just not a fit. Like, we can always put them back where they were. And I remember thinking, I'm like, what? Like, who would do that? Mm-hmm. Most people would just think you became a manager or something, and then if it didn't work out, you were gone. Like, that's at least how it's been for me in my life. And so I remember the first time I saw it here, I was like, are you good, bud? Like, is everything okay? Yeah, it just wasn't working out. And it was perfectly fine. And several of those people still are in the role that they were doing prior.
Yeah.
They just found what did not work for them. And so there is definitely some pride, I would say, for men. But it could really be for anyone.
It could.
You just feel like this doesn't feel good. It never feels good to step into something and it just not work out. You could view it as failure, or you could view it as education. But when you look at it and say, this is not my jam, I really enjoyed this, or maybe this allowed me to recognize and get a taste of what doesn't work for me, I'd like to try something else. Mm-hmm. And so I think the key with that is making sure that you learn about yourself, of who you are as a person and what your strengths are and are not, because it is very enticing and very conventional to say that as I grow, I have to step into management. Mm-hmm. This is the ladder. This is what's set before me. And so if you recognize and see not all paths lead upwards, they can lead depth-wise in your particular role and continue to grow yourself in that. That's absolutely perfect too. And it is important for managers to recognize that if I don't see those talents in that individual to become a manager or whatever, how can I champion them in that role and make them the best daggum tech or purchaser or warehouse individual, like whatever it is. Like, if you're going to be a coordinator in the warehouse, how can I make you the best daggum warehouse coordinator in the world? Like, how can I help you grow? Because if they don't want to do that and this is all that they want to do, I'm here for you. The other side of that is, if someone's pouring time and energy into you, but you're not ready to grow, like, give them their time back and be like, hey, I'm just not ready for this right now. Not everybody's ready to continue to pour in themselves. I would say that's probably my frustration. I know we've talked about it too, is I want to help everybody. I know you want to help everybody, but some people just are not ready to hear it. And they're like, oh, thank you for that. And then you talk to them 2 weeks later, have you tried it yet? Have you done it? No. I'm like, okay. I used to try to save everybody. There's another good Brandon story. There was a tech back in the day. I love this dude. He's a nice guy, super nice. But he was chomping at the bit to get out there. It's freezing cold outside. It's like 15 degrees here in Charlotte, 15 degrees, drain lines freeze for furnaces. And we needed help. And I remember telling Brandon, I said, dude, this guy's chomping at the bit to get out there. Even if he just runs one call, like it'll be a help. I don't know if that's a good idea. And I'm like, come on, man. He's not ready. He's not ready for it yet. And he says, it's your call. If this is what you want to do, it's your call. So I said, come on in. Told the tech to come in, head on out there. And he was on that call all day. And he's calling me. I'm trying to help him. This was back when we didn't really have great pictures on phones and stuff. And I'm like looking at pictures. I mean, if you could imagine that on a little Nextel screen, the whole deal, I'm looking at it. I'm like, I'm trying to help this fool. He was out there all day. And you talk about pride. I was like, that was my call. And he finally figured it out, and it was just something goofy. But I just remember he just wasn't ready. And not everybody's ready to grow, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But if we're in this journey of life and we're on this path, you have the chance, you have the opportunity to continue to flow down the river, or if you're not flowing down the river, you just stepped off and you're just on the banks. Mm-hmm. And people telling you to get in the water, come on, bud, let's go. Not everybody's ready for that, and that's okay too. But we can't be on the bank for long. You don't need to be there for long. Mm-hmm. Challenge yourself, hop in, even if you go down a little bit. But I used to want to save everybody. I wanted to save him. I wanted to help, but not everybody's ready for it. And that's just somebody that's chomping at the bit. Technically, he wasn't ready. Mm-hmm. That's okay. But not everybody's ready to continue to grow themselves. Hey, let's talk about an area that you do need to focus on. Hey, let's talk about your patience. That's something that's causing you to fall short. Hey, let's talk about your growth in communication. Where are you at with that? All the stuff that you've taught in Tech Talks and all the other ones that you teach. People, it's beautiful when people show up to that. Mm-hmm. But even the ones that show up with that, if you know how it is, if one or two people walk out with something, it's like the Bible, or it's like going to church. It's like, Lord, thank you so much. 2 people out of 10 got it. Let's go. But I know, and you know, that not all 10 people are going to walk out and go apply everything. They're not all ready to hear it, which is okay too.
Yeah, I think that is, I wrote down some things like, what can people do now? If you're, it's just interesting. Like I said, it was a little bit liberating for me to not have to feel like I need to keep climbing the ladder. Because what I've realized about myself is I don't want to be the manager of anybody. Sure don't. I don't want to do that. I have found a role here where I can do what I hope other people feel like I am good at every day. I can pour my heart and soul into that, and I can just keep expanding, kind of like you were talking about, like making it, I don't know if I'm making it wider or deeper. I don't know what I'm doing. Either way, I'm trying to grow myself in the role. I don't need to go to any other role to do that. I can do that in the role I'm in right now. I have the autonomy and I have the freedom, particularly here, to be able to make this role what I want it to be. And so I think sometimes people, for one reason or the other, maybe they're not ready to grow, that, you feel stuck. I think instead of just kind of wallowing and feeling stuck, I think it's thinking about, well, what am I good at? What things do come naturally to me? What skills can I build off of that are naturally aligned to my talents? I wrote down here because it made me think of it. You know how we always ask, like our kids or other kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? Yep. And so rather than asking, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or even thinking about yourself, what's my long-term career path? Instead of looking at it so like linear like that, it's like, I've never asked Mila, like, what do you think you're naturally good at? I'm like, well, that's a different way to look at that. What are you naturally good at? What types of problems do you like to solve? That would probably help her more in like deciding what route she wants to take. Not that she has to decide that right now. She's only 15. But I do think it's kind of cool to help our kids even start recognizing it doesn't have to be that way. Like I know my parents, and for decades, everything kind of followed this predictable path, right? It was like, get a degree, get a job, work your way up, retire. Done. Right. End of life. I mean, I know for my parents, it was very much that way. My dad had the same job for 30 years. I don't know that he stayed there because it like coincided with his talents, or if he did it because that was the role. he was fulfilling the role of provider and father, and I don't know. That's probably a good question I could ask him.
Yeah.
But it's different now. It's just different. I don't think people are so much in that predictable mindset. So like, how great would it be for Mila to have this kind of understanding of what makes her, these talents that she can offer to the marketplace in some way, shape, or form? To me, that's better than trying to pigeonhole her into this direction, and just letting that happen a little bit differently, maybe than it might have happened for us.
Yeah. What do you feel like she's good
at? So she is her mother's daughter. This is an apple tree situation. It's funny. We're going to a concert next week, and one of her friends is going with her. Mila has spent months planning her outfit. Months. We've ordered things. We've sent things back. We've done this. We've done that. We know how we're going to do our hair, our makeup, everything.
Oh, she's thought this out.
Yes, she has a plan.
But then you go into the concert and it's dark in there.
She don't even know all that yet. This is her first concert.
She'll learn. I spent all this time. It's dark.
Yeah. So her friend, she was just telling me the other day, she's like, Mom, she doesn't even have her outfit planned out yet. And I said, honey, there's nothing that you can do about that. Well, what if she doesn't pick out an outfit and she's just like wearing something random and we're like taking pictures together? I'm like, you can't control that, Mila. You can't control that. Well, what if she's so busy getting ready because she hasn't planned it out and she's late? You also can't control that, right? So, like I said, she is her mother's daughter.
Wow.
So planning, right? Having a vision. And wanting to kind of execute that vision and what that looks like. I do think that she is practical. Like, she does not live like she's creative, but she's also practical. And so I think that those things will serve her well.
Yeah.
But I would be curious to hear what she says as well.
Yeah, I would be too. I mean, we know our kids very well. You get to see them every day. You see all the things they interact with and how they react to things. Be curious what she would say back to that.
Yeah, I think it is also like going back to kind of this predictable formula that we followed for so long. It's just interesting to me now. I am still kind of using what I went to college for, but like elementary education.
I mean, adults are just big kids. It's really all about the same, you know?
That's true. But it is like, I think it's just funny now. It's like, is everybody using what they went to school for? I don't know. So I remember
asking that question to my teachers. Am I really going to use this? Because I don't know if this ain't worth all the pain that I'm having to deal with right now. All my math teachers out there.
Yeah, I think I am, kind of looking at it a little bit differently than maybe my parents looked at it for me, or that I even looked at it for myself.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that goes back to, like just not thinking that it's got to be so like get a degree, go work your way up. And, it doesn't have to be. And plus two, I want her to enjoy the job. I want her to have the ability to come to work like I do every day and do what she does best.
Yeah. I
don't want her stuck in a job that she hates. So I think, instead of, I don't know, it's just a shift in thinking. And I also read something too about like, I don't really exactly know what this means, but the half-life of knowledge is 5 years nowadays. Because we learn so much more so fast. Am I interpreting that correctly?
So you learn this amount of information in 5 years, half of it's gone because we're cramming more information. Is that what you're saying?
Or there's more. Not that it's gone, but it's like there's so much coming so fast. So basically, like if I spent my whole entire career studying elementary education, like that's maybe irrelevant after a certain amount of time.
Oh, I see.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so like what that means is that the job or the skills people need for jobs is shifting faster and faster. And I think that's probably accurate.
Yeah.
And so being so rigid about it, I don't think plays really to what we're kind of dealing with in the marketplace now. And so I think really shifting the thinking and playing to your strengths, and it's a kind of a mind shift that I think people have to take on.
I would definitely say around here, I see that often, because even like e-support, for instance, how they were the purpose at which they were brought on for was you have CSRs that answer phone calls, but then things became more digitized where not everybody wants to talk on the phone. A lot of people don't want to talk on the phone. I don't even like ordering pizza. Like, we'll order pizza once every couple months, and it's like,
nope, give me on the app.
Yep, I don't want to talk to anybody. Frankly, the phone calls aren't always great anyway. Would you like a special? No, I know what I want. Would you like to hear our specials? No, I think I'm good. We have a two-time. I'm like, do you have to say it? And I'm like, daggum, I don't want to hear. I told you twice. But people want to contact us digitally, so they don't have to talk to anybody. So there's a ton of chats and all that. But even the e-support role has grown and evolved, where we've had hybrid CSRs where they can do a little bit of both. But I can imagine that the future, just on the customer experience side with that, will probably become much more digitized, less as much on the phone. However, the other side of that, I was talking with Sam Hagee upstairs. She's reading The Customer Experience Revolution, I believe. I've read like 4 chapters. I was like, I need to finish this, but I had to put down. I had other things going on. I watched the gentleman that wrote the book, John. He did his whole seminar for like an hour just talking about how the customer experience is becoming one of the greatest commodities on the earth, because when you have everything that's digitized and you don't talk to anybody, great customer service gets way less, so watered down, where it's just like, I just have to have this because somebody might call in, versus creating an amazing experience on the phone to where people are like, man, this person's really nice. It sets up the next person to come out and be like, maybe that was just a nice person on the phone. And then a amazing, sharp, good-looking tech shows up and truly looks them in the eyes, sets good expectations for them, walks them through the call, builds a ton of trust. And they're like, holy smokes. And hopefully everything is fixed, but things are mechanical. They break. And then the next time that they call us out in a couple of years, they remember that experience. Or maybe if they're one of our Priority Advantage customers, they see us every 6 months and they consistently get the same experience over and over again, but with different people. And it's like, just like Chick-fil-A, it's like, what is going on over there? You can't go to a Chick-fil-A without having a very similar experience. My pleasure. I hear it all the time. I used to say it.
Yeah.
And so how can we create an experience like that? And I think that's where, going back to what you were saying earlier, what are your talents and how can you continue to grow those things? So in looking at what we talked about today with the ladder, some takeaways for y'all. If it's like, okay, how do I apply this stuff? Like, what can I do? If I'm not going to continue to climb the ladder, what can I do? And so, much like we said earlier, one of the first things is just identifying your talents. What are my talents? I would highly recommend the StrengthsFinder. That's one good place to start. Or you can just ask people that you know, hey, what do you feel like I'm good at? And it's just those things that come up easily for you, that you don't necessarily need to think about a whole lot, but it's just something that just comes naturally to you, that others are like, I don't even know how you do that, right? That's a good place to start. But then also thinking about what the future looks like. If you know, and you have to take, it's hard to step back and say, everybody's like, holds managers up on a pedestal. It's just like, it's just another role. And if that really doesn't sound appealing, and it's like, I don't know if I want to manage people, how can you take your role and maximize that? Or take your talents and then apply them to your role and try to really maximize that role. So no different than the individual that I worked with prior. If you find yourself super skeptical about stuff, that's okay. How can I turn that into a true talent? Because it is one. How can I truly productively apply this in a way that's going to maximize my value in the workspace? And then don't just be like, oh, I'm good at this. Well, doggone it, chase after that. How are there things that I can read that'll make that even better? No different than a position out on a field. So identifying your talents and then finding how can I continue to expand those talents to where, I'm maximizing my talent here. The other thing I will say is that the talents that you do have, it's not always just that you just have one. It could be a couple. And so identifying those multiple things and then finding which ones I'm not tapping into, because you might have 2 or 3 talents, and the more value you bring to the workplace, the more money you can make, the more things that you can change around here. I remember Brandon, another shout out to Brandon. I remember him saying one point, he's like, I don't care if you come to me and tell me that you want a raise, fine, come on in here. But the question I'm going to ask you is, how much additional value have you brought to the workspace? Like, I'm not just talking about your job. What have you done above and beyond that? Because you are paid according to how much value you bring to the workplace. And if you look at anybody that has started their own business out there, they're bringing a lot of value to the marketplace. And so they make a specific amount of money from that, right? And so if I'm out there bringing value and I'm just trying to help people, it starts with that, then this comes along with it. I think people get it twisted. They're like, I need to make more money. Let me just bring more value. You're doing it in the wrong space. And so if it's truly, I want to go out there and I want to help people, I want to provide this for people, not for the money, I'm doing it just for that, then life is much more fulfilling because I'm doing things that actually matter versus doing something that's finite and fades away.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is about, finding those opportunities within your role, like thinking outside the box. I think it's easy to say, oh, that's not my job, or like, I kind of want to do this like project, but I don't think that my boss will say yes. I'm pretty sure that if the boss finds some credibility and some value in the project that you want to do that would lend yourself into getting into your talents, they're not going to say no. But I think too often we get kind of pigeonholed in like, this is my job, these are my responsibilities, this is my role, I'm going to do these same things all the time. And we don't ever give ourselves the opportunity to think outside that box.
Yep.
And so I think if you reflect on what are your talents and then you start thinking of how can I maximize my role with those talents, just be creative, like think about what it is that you could do. The only other thing I'll add to that too is this kind of ladder climbing culture. To me, it also, we talk about this a lot on here. If we think that climbing the ladder is the only way for us to move up or to get better or to make more money or to have more credibility, then essentially we are putting the responsibility of our own careers in someone else's hands.
Yep.
Because what that means is whoever controls the ladder gets to decide when I move up, how I move up, what does that look like? My career and what I'm going to leave behind as my legacy is too important for me to leave that up to someone else to do or to someone else to decide. That's my job. That's no one else's job to decide when I'm ready for the next rung on the ladder or to expand my skill set so that I am available for the next rung on the ladder if that's what I choose to do. I hadn't really thought about that until we were getting ready for this. And so this ladder climbing, it puts the responsibility on the outside, but the responsibility lies with us to be able to get into that role that maximizes who we are and what we were put here to be able to do. To be, most of the things that we do are in service of others in some way, shape, or form. And so really thinking about how can I tap into that, I think that's one of my biggest takeaways from this is like, I'm not leaving that up to someone else. What I choose to do and the role I choose to be in, that's going to be up to me to decide.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add, and then we'll bring this thing in for a landing, is very good advice that I got a long time ago. And it's something that is you'll see often here at Morris-Jenkins is that not waiting for a title or a position to open up before you do something about it. Because by the time that you even get the opening, like the job postings put up, and you start preparing at that point, it's too late. Mm-hmm. So if you feel passionate about something, if there's something out there that you recognize as a whole, it's an opportunity for us to grow, just go do it. Don't wait for a title. I don't know how many times someone's told me, hey, don't do that. It's going to help us too much. Like, don't. it's usually like, oh, that's a good idea. Thank you. Whatever. Just if there's something that you're passionate about, just go do it. If there's a particular role or something that's out there that you're passionate about, don't wait for the title. Just go do it. You're creating value. You're helping people. It's obviously something that's going to be good. And so not waiting for that. I remember Eddie said one time, he says, if you think that the interview starts the day that the job got posted or when we walk in that room, you're wrong. Mm-hmm. And so the interview's all the time. And so if there's a particular role you're interested in, you're not waiting for it. Just go do what you need to do and people see it. And then it just makes perfect sense that this person's going to be the right fit for that because they're already doing the daggum thing.
Yeah. I've said this, I don't know when we were talking about this, but I said this before is like, if a certain situation or a certain role or a certain thing comes up, I want the first person people to think about to be me.
Yep.
Like, I want them to know this is the value that she brings. These are the things she's good at. These are the things she's already done. So if this particular situation comes up or this role becomes available, I don't know what those things are at this present moment, but I want there to be no doubt in anyone's mind that it's me. I'm the one that's the right fit for that. Yep. And so you can't wait on the role to be ready for that, for your name to be the first name that comes up.
Get ready right now.
Yep.
I like that. Climbing the ladder today.
That's right. Or not.
Or not.
Yeah. I hope that we have offered a different perspective. Like I said, I myself fell under the umbrella of conventional wisdom until I started here at Morris-Jenkins. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins, for opening up my eyes to the fact that it doesn't have to be that way. And so for some people it is. Some people will move up the ladder, but it doesn't have to always be that way. So hopefully we provided everybody with a little bit of a different perspective today.
Yeah. And hopefully your journey, you recognize that you can continue to grow in width or depth, just not climb the ladder, but finding what are your talents and really tapping into those and finding what's going to work best for you. Don't wait for the title. Go ahead and start doing it now and go ahead and continue to grow yourself because at the end of the day, you don't want to leave it in somebody else's hands. It might as well be in your own.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
All right. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcast. And now you can subscribe on YouTube. That's really exciting. All right. We'll see you guys again in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for listening. Peace, love, and easy does it.
Hey, appreciate y'all.